Welcome, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Professor Jennifer Jordan. I'm a professor of leadership and organizational behavior here at IMD. Just some ground rules for the next hour that we're together. The first one is, because it's a webinar, we cannot see or hear you, so you're invisible, but we can see your comments in the chat. So if you have questions throughout, type them in the chat. I'm going to be monitoring the chat because I have the pleasure of working with my dear friend and colleague, Francesca Giulia. We have worked together several times before, and we thought, what a nice opportunity to come here together and share some of our collaborations with you today. So we can't see or hear you. Questions go in the chat. I'll be monitoring the chat and bringing the questions to Francesca Giulia's attention throughout. We also have saved a little time for questions at the end too, just to kind of wrap things up if we have some time. So we'll see how that goes. Today is recharge your batteries, managing the 4 dimensions of your energy. And as I said, the first slide, my name is first, but really this is more appropriate. I should be going second here because today is all of Francesca Giulia's brainchild, and she will share with you more of where this came from, the motivation behind it, and her background in the area of energy. But this is her stuff. So I'm here to give some context, to maybe answer some questions, but to act more as a support to Francesca Giulia. Please move to the next slide. We know that the success of your leadership isn't only about your behaviors and your actions in the workplace. It also has a lot to do with the mind space that you enter your workplace with, where you are, where your energy is coming from, what is on your mind, what is going on psychologically within you, and what is also going on physically. And today is going to address that context. So next one, please. So luckily, the leadership world is starting to recognize this. And most broadly, we see this in the area of mindfulness. There's a lot of work right now on mindfulness and leadership. What does it really truly mean to be in flow? What does it mean to be mindful? And next one. Today, we're going to be taking on a different angle of that, not just leadership actions, but the state of the leader. And that angle we're going to be taking on today is around energy. And as I mentioned earlier, Francesca Giulia has many years of experience in this. She's even written a book on the topic, which she will share with you. Next one, Francesca Giulia. And today we're also going to be really thinking about how has COVID affected your energy, not necessarily if you have the virus, and hopefully no one here on the webinar does, but just how does the situation that we're facing with disrupted workplaces, disrupted work schedules, disrupted teams, the uncertainty, how has that affected your energy, and how is that effects then trickling into your leadership, and what do you need to know about that? So Francesca Giulia will be addressing this point. Next one. And this is not a minor point. There's a lot of work right now that we're seeing coming out in newspapers around burnout amid the pandemic. You can keep clicking through these. Burnout amid the pandemic. Keep going. How to avoid burnout during the COVID-19. Another headline I saw recently, click, is where people burn out most during COVID-19. So this isn't just a minor thing. There are many people reporting that burnout and stress is a risk, especially during this period, which is a little bit counterintuitive, right? Because many of us are working from home, and many of us maybe are not at the same magnitude of work that we were pre-COVID, but yet we're still feeling burnt out, and our energy is maybe not being managed at the best point it could be. We can move to the next slide. So today will be a more comprehensive look on energy. And what I mean by that, before I met Francesca Giulia, I always thought energy was energy. But she has, through her expertise, broken energy down into different facets or dimensions. And we're going to be sharing that. She's going to be sharing those dimensions with you. And you will, I guarantee, walk away from this webinar not thinking about energy as just one dimension, but multidimensional. And thinking about those different dimensions in a way that affects your leadership and how you act. And it's not only, next bullet, please. It's not only how you manage your energy, but also as a leader, how maybe are you managing the energy of those around you, which is also critical and a critical role as a leader. So with that, giving it some context, I'm going to now turn it over to Francesca Giulia. I'll be monitoring the chat for questions, but otherwise I'm going to put myself on mute. Thank you, Francesca Giulia, over to you.
Thank you, Jennifer.
So wherever you are, you might be either curious or really asking yourself, how can I sustain this good flow that I have experienced? Jennifer talked about flow, which is a sense of being able to access all your resources. And also, Jennifer mentioned the burnout, that for me is more a state where the energy is blocked. I don't know how to deal with it. I don't know how to recognize my feelings, or I have a sense of lack of control. So that somehow is not flowing. So actually, this is what attracted me since I was a child. How come that certain people can flow through life and handle whatever is coming, and some others, and I was a child like that, would cry and crash at any little, I would say, upheaval, uncertainty, or change. And that, of course, brought me to explore different dimensions. So I started yoga when I was 9, and then I left Italy and started anthropology, so values, norms in cultures. And that later brought me to learn and live, to learn languages, learn in different countries. And that starts to be quite a while ago. More than 20 years ago, I started coaching managers and leaders. And there, what Jennifer said was really obvious. Our inner state, as common sense as it sounds, is really affecting our outer performances, the quality of our life, what is happening outside. And this is how I developed what was a childhood passion for my own balance into, I would say, an approach that was very complementary to leadership coaching. This is what I do since many years. So this is a webinar where you will be able, wherever you are in your energy journey, to find 3 ideas and concepts that will help you, and also go inside. So that is really my wish for you. Go inside and listen to what you need. You will have, as a format in this webinar, an idea that I will share with you about energy. Then you will have few minutes to think, how is this relevant for me? What is important that is unique to me? Because the idea is general. And then Jennifer and I will monitor the questions, and due to the, I see 5 participants who raised their hands. I hope it's not the audio. Good. So after this few minutes of silence, we will monitor also the questions, and I will answer 1 or 2 due to the time frame. What I will do after, I will look at all the questions. So either I cluster them and I follow up with an email, but we will make sure that if you ask a question, it will be answered. So this is a time, and this I'm coming back to my intention for this webinar, where through my words, my wish is that you listen to yourself, you listen to what your needs are. And this is why being focused, being fully present is a gift to you. This is a present you're doing to yourself. You're going to have the slides at the end. That is very intellectually good, but it's the unique experience of being present through this webinar to yourself that will make the difference. The slides will be there. I also will add some, so it will be more like a written summary. But it's the experience that counts. So let's start with by defining, before we go to the goals, what is managing your energy. Well, it's something you already do. You always did it. When we are tired, we sleep. when we have emotions, we express them, we think, how is this affecting me? We're focusing on our work, we eat. So that is what happens. You're feeling more alert, you're feeling more focused, you're feeling more engaged or less engaged, less alert. You're already been doing it. Now, what is the difference for this webinar? Imagine that you would be able to have this flow much more effective with more control. So in the end, you are more often and more easily at your best. We have days we feel we can access all our resources and we are there and we are fully, again, focused and present. So that is the essence of the webinar. 3 ideas how to manage your energy more effectively. So let's see the goals, more practical now. So the first, as I told you, is to learn 3 ideas that through the years I found are framing how to manage this energy. Because when I wrote my book, the book is a toolkit. It's full of tools. So techniques, breathing, visualization, mindfulness, as Jennifer said, everything. But what I learned is that unless the tools have a framework which helps you to say, but what is unique for me? What do I really need now? These tools will stay, yes, I could do this, I could go running, I should eat differently, and it does not gel as good as it could. So that was my learning in more than 20 years. Framework is important, tools are important, and what is even more important is the third element, is you. You are the unique connector, how to use the framework and the tools. The second goal of the webinar is what I told you before, to help you assess what is the impact of this energy flow in your daily life. So the 3 ideas will help you starting to observe, starting to assess, how does this play out? And this is why the few minutes of silence are important. If you finish earlier, you're just welcome to start typing questions. But how is this relevant for you? That is one of the key points. The third goal is to use more often the tools you already know. You will see energy management, it's a lot of common sense. Now, the focus is how to go from common sense to your common practice. And as much as I know that tools and techniques and models are very appealing, very often we know a lot that we could do to improve this flow. And it could be really walking a little bit more, expressing emotions differently, having breaks during the day, just not looking at the computer, especially now, that in the end our eyes are tired or our concentration is lapsing. So use more often what you already know. And I'm sure you will learn, and I might add a few more. But the focus is from common sense, from what you know, to common practice, what you do. So let's start. That is something. So I told you 3 ideas. First idea, you've seen these batteries. There are 4 dimensions of your energy. And that is already a way to organize where you can more easily draw your energy and where it gets a bit down. So the physical dimension is the most obvious one. How we feel is the general health, is how vital we are. And I'm sure you all had a bad night's sleep. That goes really dramatically down. So physical energy is the sleep, the food, the kind of movement we do. Mental energy is our ability to focus, the clarity of our thoughts, also the ability to be flexible in our ideas. And lately, many of us have been facing this mental energy, have been using this mental energy due to also adapting to the virtual situation. The third is the emotional energy. You heard, I'm sure, a lot about resilience lately. How do we handle uncertainty, the current uncertainty? How do we handle emotions, how we express them, how we also turn the page and let go? The fourth dimension is the spiritual one. Which are our values? Why do we wake up in the morning? What is our motivation to contribute maybe to ourselves or also to others? So 4 dimensions of your energy, and this is useful for you and is also useful to look at others if you're managing teams. So physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. One remark, this is a model. So you are one human where all these 4 dimensions are really interacting, reinforcing, balancing or unbalancing each other. Now, that's the most important part. What about you? I'll count 2-3 minutes for you to go inside and ask yourself, okay, what is the battery that usually recharges more easily, that is somehow stronger or stable or usually up? Do you have one? And do you have a battery, maybe 1 or 2, depends, that drains more easily or that is less stable, that goes up and down, that is sometimes playing some less agreeable turns to how you address your life? So few minutes of silence and then we'll open up again for questions and remarks.
So we see a few questions that have come up, Francesca Giulia. I'm going to start with one. Let's maybe cover 3 of them at this point. So Tabby says, how can we become less vulnerable to the depleted energy levels in our ecosystem? Maintaining our inner state would seem to be key. So I guess Tabby is talking about, we might have batteries that go up and down, but what about the batteries that are going up and down around us? How do we not let that negatively affect us? That's how I'm going to read it. And
thank you. Okay.
Tabby, feel free to elaborate on that.
Okay, so I'll have a go, and in 1 minute I'll start answering so people can finish their own. So it's in the interaction between the macro world, the outer world, and my own. How does it resonate in my own? Yeah. Thank you, Jennifer. That's really helpful.
There's another one. This is coming actually in the question window from Suyin about people using, and maybe you want to address this one later. Some parties use negative energy. And if some other parties choose to address or call it out, it can be deflected back to, say, slowing down the process and the person is not interested in results. How can we best respond to this type of energy? So she's saying, when parties use negative energy, how do you want to respond so that it doesn't deplete your batteries is kind of how I see it. And then she asks a similar question would be, how do we, and maybe you'll address this later, apply these batteries not only to ourselves, but to our teams? Is it the same model or is it different? And maybe those 3 questions are enough to get you going. Okay.
Thank you, Jennifer. Okay, so I would say, let me reflect a couple of seconds more and then let me see where to start. Okay, yes, I know how to start. Okay, so I'll start with the negative energy, how not to feel depleted. So that reflections on the 4 batteries is useful because it helps all of us to think where do I go to ground myself, to recharge? So before we are even addressing how others are influencing ourselves, it's very important to understand, where do I recharge and where am I more vulnerable? Because if somebody is saying, I feel depleted when I interact with somebody, I would ask, are you feeling emotionally depleted because the person is advancing and you feel you should respond? So it's more an emotional response. Is it more mental? Because it's exhausting, it's tiring in the sense it's a lot of information. Or even more spiritual, you feel there is a value misalignment. What the person might consider a respectful attitude is very different to what you can consider a respectful attitude. So I would start to break it down into in which batteries goes the depletion, and which ones are more responding, or simply put, how do you feel? Do I feel mentally tired after meeting this person? Do I feel really, that was not good? That might be more the spiritual. Or do I feel upset or just sad or angry? So that might help already to understand. Once this is clear, then it is probably easier to choose where to put the boundaries. Do I have to frame a conversation to in order to clarify my priorities? That would be more mental. Do I have to stop somehow the emotional drain that might come with the person asking for an availability or an emotional presence? So that would be a big picture answer. Look at the 4 batteries, identify where you feel it's tapping more. And that also goes into the question about the team. Is it the same with the team? Yes, though it's more complex. I work with team, so that's why we're starting with ourselves. I didn't even mention in the goals, and you will be able to take care of your team better. The moment you know which batteries are more are stronger, for example, for you, are easier to take care, are more stable, then you start to recognize it for yourself. Okay, that's it. I see. And then it's far easier to notice in others. So that is first step. Now, in terms of team, you can use this model as a team. This is what I do, and ask each one the same questions, and then it becomes a team conversation. You have the slides, you can facilitate the same. So the team comes up with a team chart. What do they do that drains, behaviors, and you will see the second idea for the team. And then the last one was my personal reality. How is it affected by the overall ecological micro level? And that is tying into the second idea. I would say it helps to raise your awareness of where am I directing my energy, and you will understand. We will see it in the second idea. I think it's easier if I use the second concept to get back and answer this. Because it's helpful to have the other concept. Okay, so we saw the 4 energies. Let's go, that's the first idea. Let's go to another idea that will really help you. Rechargers and drainers. That's the second energy. That's the second energy idea. Very simply put, remember, common sense needs to become more common practice. What is recharging your energy? When you look, what are the actions? What are the situations? What are the people? And I added pets, your own thoughts, emotions, smells, anything. And at the same time, what are your drainers? What is draining your energy? and you see it's the same again. Could be actions you do or situations, people, and it's the same. So this time, again, few minutes of silence, go inside, ask yourself right now, currently, what is recharging me and what is draining me? So we see more the flow of your energy and how is it affecting you. Few minutes of silence, and I'm also starting to look at the questions. So
let me know, Francesca Giulia. I'm monitoring the questions. So when you want a new one, I'm happy to bring them in, but I don't want to interrupt you. So
actually, yes, it does help me because then everybody can have time to write, and I have time to think.
Okay,
Organize better.
So a great question from Sarah. What are the energies are at conflict? So for example, mental versus spiritual, physical versus emotional. Does it happen and what to do about it? And the second
Jennifer,
one.
Can you say it again in the beginning, what Sarah asked?
What if energies are at conflict? For example, mental versus spiritual, physical
conflict
versus emotional. Does it happen and what to do about it? And then the second one comes from Dirk. He said, I understand how to recharge the physical battery and most probably the mental one, but how to address the emotional battery?
That's a good point. Yeah, it needs to be much more practical. I'll give an example. Yeah, thank you. So the conflict of the batteries, what to do when inside me, that's my understanding, Jennifer. I have almost different voices. So is this is how you understood it? There's the mental voice that is saying this, I should do this, or I'm doing this. And there's another voice that is saying, but maybe my values are not aligned. Is how you understand Sarah's question?
I understand Sarah's question is saying, okay, we have all these four batteries. So I might have something that brings the energy in the mental space, but it actually depletes me physically because I have to do something to get to it. How do I, and that's how I'm seeing it. So hopefully
thank you.
Catching it, Sarah. So what happens when these batteries, to get one charge will drain the other one? How do I deal with that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, thank you. No, that's that makes a lot more sense. Yes, thank you. And that I'll give a very practical answer. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So let's start. I'll start answering, and I'll start with Sarah's. They are both very good questions because they addressed how do I do it in practice. So yes, what happens when there's one battery that goes up because of something that I'm doing and the other that goes down? So there are various ways to address it. With your energy, it's very rare that just one way. So one is just being aware. In this situation, the overall, I would say, harmony of my four batteries will be unbalanced. So first, be aware that that situation, especially if it's recurrent, it's likely to leave you in a state of, I would say, disharmony or somehow not as balanced as before. So first, you can prepare. Then again, you can ask yourself, okay, which battery will be drained? What can I do? And let's go with the mental and the spiritual. So mental usually benefits of variety because it's our brain. So maybe I can do something else before, after. I can have breaks. Now this will depend really on the situation. So I'm saying very generic, but more breaks, more variety, time like mindfulness, like time in nature just to empty the head for whatever reasons. Values, if assuming this is a situation where the mental goes up and the spiritual goes down, meaning there is a value misalignment, there you might want to be aware, okay, short term, this is the situation, but midterm, this is why I'm doing it. And so zoom your reflections on a longer term why and a longer term value. That would be So maybe how to make it more generic. Look at how to replenish the battery that would go down, and ask yourself, what do I need after? And use the other batteries, because sometimes moving, sometimes talking with somebody might be helpful. So again, you look at the 4 again and say, where can I tap for more energy? So that would be an answer. Now going to the other, what about the emotional battery? That is obviously less clear to recharge than the physical one. Again, the first thing I would suggest is ask yourself, what do you know about you, which calms your emotions, which lift your emotions? So all of us usually know. Doesn't mean that we are doing it, but for some people is silence, recharging, and walking in nature. For some people is sharing with loved ones. For some people is just laughing. For some people is beauty. So I would ask a person, how do you usually recharge your emotional battery? So assuming that, I've already given you some ideas. Nature usually does it, silence, people you care about. And in terms of drainers and rechargers, look at, and this will be written in the summary, at the frequency, at the quantity, and at the quality. So for rechargers, look at how you can do it more often or for longer. One remark is that drainers are more important than rechargers. As much as I love the positive attitude, I've noticed through the years that if the drainers are big, it's like big holes in a bucket. It just, the water goes through. So look first at what are your drainers and how you can reduce them. Now, the question from before about my micro world is being affected by what is happening around, I would suggest that you look at what recharges your energy and what is especially draining your energy right now. And I would like to use this model that might answer that question better. When I feel that the macro world is affecting me too much, it means that I am focusing my energy too much on what is beyond my control. This is a very common sense model. In any situation, there is something I can control, something I can influence because there are other people involved, and something that I need to accept. So be mindful where you focus your energy. Are you focusing on what I can control, on what you can control? And that will replenish you. Influencing could be like phoning friends more often, for example. Well, they need to be available. They need to be in a similar mode to talk. Accept, just be mindful if I'm focusing, for example, right now a lot around the uncertainty of the current situation. It could be job security, finances, the health of the loved ones. There's no leverage there. There's no control. The energy gets just absorbed like a black hole. So that is a very useful model to notice, where am I focusing my energy? Where am I directing it? Control gives you results. Influence gives you also results. Acceptance is a little bit like lamenting about the weather. It's accepting. Accepting actually does not mean agreeing or condoning. It's just that for now you have no leverage. Okay, let's move.
Francesca Giulia, there's plenty of questions, but given the time, I will let you go forward. If you want to stop and have me give you a few, let me know, okay?
Probably not. What I will do, unless you find there's one, Jennifer, that is really important, because I will look at all the questions, and as I told you, I will answer So since the computer now it's moving, it's also understood. So you saw two ideas, and you also heard me saying that energy management is moving from what you know to even more often doing and putting in practice. So the third idea, actually, it's a very, very practical one. How do you translate these ideas into actions? So mini habits. Mini habits is a mini habit is an action that you decide is helpful for you, is meaningful. So might address how you manage your emotional battery, might address what to do when there's a conflict between two batteries. It needs to have a meaning for you. It also needs to be implemented frequently, so 4 or 5 times per week. So you really try it. That, remember, it's a habit, so you have time to practice it over and over again. The third criteria is the most important one. An action that is possible even when you are very tired or busy. And this is where I see with my coaches, the actions plans tends to stay plans because they are very ambitious. So an action that is meaningful, frequent, and possible. Imagine you at the end of a long day. Will I be able to do it? Let me give you some very practical examples. A mini habit could be, I spend 3 minutes alone in silence. If you do mindfulness, fine, or in silence walking. Or I go at the end of the day, if you're working from home, I have a moment and walk my dog. Or I will have 1 minute break during my working day of every 45 minutes. You put a reminder and you have 1 minute, you stand up, you drink some water, you stretch. Very, very, very small habits. And then they compound, and you will see in the summary there's a template, how they can compound, and you will be able to follow the template in the summary. But now, few minutes of silence. What about you? What is one mini habit that you could start tomorrow or today? I would encourage you to write it down because it makes it more committing and visual. Up to you. But think of one action that has these qualities: meaningful, frequent, and possible. And then we'll get back as usual after a few minutes of silence. And actually, Jennifer, if you have a question that really attracted your attention, then...
Sure. Okay, super. So, and I think for me, I think my mini habit that I'm going to start tomorrow is getting out of the house more, because I find that I sit inside and I'm not getting fresh air. So making an alarm on my phone that after every couple hours, I actually have to walk outside, not just walk around the house. So that would be my mini habit for energy that I came up with just now. But one of the questions that I think was really good, it comes from Bogdan. So you had your 3 concentric circles. Mm-hmm. And one of them is I accept. And you said accepting doesn't mean agreement, but he asked for more explanation of what does that really mean to accept?
Okay. That's a very good question. Thank you for picking that, because usually I spend more time on what does it mean to accept. Accept means that if I put my energy on that issue, and let's talk maybe about the weather, since we all talk about this pandemic. So the weather. I don't like rain. I used to live in a very rainy country. I could wake up every morning and say, I can't believe on the west coast of Canada it's still raining. Oh, it's really raining and it's June. So what does it mean to accept? It means that I am asking myself, the moment I project my emotions there, my thoughts there, and then I come back disappointed, how is this helping me? And it could be a meeting that happens every month and the meeting is equally unproductive and gets longer. So for the moment, I have no way to influence the fact that this meeting is not productive. So accepting means I have, for the moment, no way to change that situation, no way to affect that situation. What I can control is how I feel, think, and perceive the situation. So the acceptance brings me back to my control zone. Maybe I need to go to a meeting. Fine. Okay, then I can control how I feel about that. The weather, I can consciously stop my internal dialogue saying, I can't believe it's June, it's still raining. So that is how I would say, looking at acceptance means where I have no leverage and I go back to what I can control and influence. Jennifer, would you like to add something? Or?
I think that's a great one. And for me, at least working with leaders, that idea of what is in my range of control, what can I influence and what can I not, and really being very deliberate with that, I think can be extremely helpful. For managing energy, I use a different word, right? I use more like managing frustration, but I think the energy is really at the core of that. So that's great. And we have some beautiful micro habits that people are mentioning in the chat. We have someone who says a walk is my mini habit. Isabel has a great one. A very powerful micro practice is to start meetings with a minute to arrive, which means a minute of silence. So getting there a minute early, I think, which can be done both virtually and physically. I love that idea, Isabel. Maybe I'll adopt that myself, because Francesca Giulia can tell you, I'm always running into meetings and she tries to give me that little time of silence. So great one.
Thank you for sharing, Jennifer, because that's the beauty of mini habits. And this is what I would encourage you to do when we talked about how to do with teams. Usually mini habits brings a lot of ideas and a lot of joy. They get maxi habits when shared. So you've noticed even a minute would do it, or going outside, walking outside in nature, just changing scenery. And also hearing the mini habits of others, very inspiring. And usually when I give a session, this is where the energy goes up and people start to giggle and write down good ideas from others. So mini habits. And I think we are slowly, that was the third idea, going into assessing the webinar. So you've learned these 3 ideas. I will send you the slides. The slides will have extra slides where I write down a bit more. So it is a short but written summary that you get to recap some of the concepts, and some I will add some more. So it is a coherent overview. Second was how to assess the impact. And as I told you, that's the start. So my wish would be that you revisit this and continue to observe. And use more often what you already know. Again, today, maybe take a moment to say, yes, this is something that in my rechargers, I could do more often. And thanks to the questions, you might have picked up also few more ideas for something you wanted to learn. So how to continue? You will have the slides, as I told you. We will also send you a link if you want to join a LinkedIn group I put together as a reminder to my coachees, where I post a very short and very practical. There are more tools. I posted movements of the shoulders when you look at the screen, or eye exercises because of all these Zoom sessions. So we'll send you the link for that. There's also a book I wrote that is a toolkit. Again, few ideas, but lots of tools. You find it on Amazon. A last is that we will also send you the link of an online energy check that is anonymous. It's free. You can access it, and then you download a report with your scores, and there are questions again to look and interpret the scores. So plenty of ideas how to sustain this, and I wish you energy, but also focus and a peaceful, I would say, flow in whatever you need. And Jennifer, can I
move it over to
sure,
me?
yes.
Perfect. And I wanted to just start closing with this slide. If it's a wave, right? And if we think about leadership as a whole is energy, right? It's energy that you exert into the world around you in order to motivate, inspire, engage people to reach a common goal or a shared purpose. And so thinking about, as we started, right, if your energy is not at its peak or at the optimum level, that you're really not able to motivate and inspire at your potential. And so I think that this topic, and that's why I was very grateful that Francesca Giulia was willing to come in today, certainly has direct ramifications for leadership. One thing that I would appreciate, Francesca Giulia, if you could address, because you said this to me once, and I found this very important, and maybe emphasize it again, is that you don't want all batteries on max, and max is not the ideal. So maybe if you could just talk, because I see questions around quantifying this, what is the ideal quantity? I think that could be helpful before we close out here.
Yeah, that is a very good point. And all of a sudden I thought exactly that. Energy needs to fluctuate. And in the slides you will see I also have waves like Jennifer. So imagine waves. Your energy needs to go up when after we've eaten, we feel energized, but then after we're also feeling a little bit sleepy. So the idea is not to maximize all the batteries. That would be too much. We are not able to sustain all the time. So the key is to notice these fluctuations. Yes, I need to sleep, or maybe I need to sleep, but it's 2:00 and I need to finish also this report. Is to be aware of these fluctuations and then go back. What can I control? How can I use the other batteries to accompany these fluctuations? So it will go up, it will go down, but in a more controlled way, in a way that is more, the focus will be gentler, not just an abrupt, I'm totally tired, or an emotional outburst or collapsing on Friday night and then needing to sleep. So thank you, Jennifer. Does this answer enough the concept of it needs to fluctuate, and the more effectively managing it means more controlled and more purposeful way?
Great.
Yeah.
And maybe, do you mind answering one more related question before we move to the thanks? Okay, so this question, I'm combining a question from DDA and Latif. So what level of synergies do you have between batteries, DDA asks? And so I think he means, like, do they move completely independently, or are they interconnected? And relatedly, the second question from Latif is the emotional battery more critical than the others? But I guess a broader question would be, is any one of the batteries more critical than the others for people to be aware of?
Yes. Thank you. Definitely, as I wrote in the slides, this is a model. We are one human. So all the batteries are deeply interrelated. How interrelated, it's very unique because for some people, for example, moving, going running, being outside, it's very important for their overall balance. So yes, they are. On a more human and practical level, the most immediate impact is our physical battery. So that is the one. On the other hand, the one that is the values, I would say there was the question between the emotional, is there a battery that is more important? How we feel is physical. That's the first impact. On the other hand, on the longer run, our values, why we are doing what we are doing, becomes very important. Because when we lose the sense of why, the meaning, when there's a loss of meaning, then the person, I'm sure we've seen people who are depressed or lost a dear one, the whole world was lost. And that, what I have experienced is the spiritual battery is where the roots of our being are. So might be slower to drain, but when there is a value misalignment, even if the body is healthy, then there's no joy, there's no spark. So yes, there is a synergy. Leverage on that and ask yourself, which are the most important batteries in the synergy for me? And the answer for me, at least, would be the values where we are. And we have a minute
Super.
and a half, so we're doing really Swiss.
And maybe we can go to the next slide, Francesca Giulia.
Yeah.
Just to say in closing, a really sincere thanks to all of you for joining in. I hope you are all walking away with some tools you can start using and implementing ASAP right away to manage your energy in a more constructive way for you and your goals as a leader. As Francesca Giulia said, we will be sharing the slides with you. She very generously offered to look at the Q&A and to maybe add some slides with some answers that we can distribute to you. And so you will have that. You also can now join Francesca Giulia's energy group on LinkedIn, which I'm a member of, and get great tips from that. So thank you. Our email addresses are there. Don't hesitate to reach out. We'd love to hear from you. Wishing you, thank you for your energy coming in here and sharing your questions, but also wishing you good energy as we move through the week. And thank you again, and best wishes for good health as well as energy. Bye.
Thank you.